guys, I'm Tracy and this is Savvy Journey, where I give you tips and tricks to help you travel in the savviest way possible. And today we're going to do or start a series that I like to call Savvy Storytime. Basically where I tell you stories about trips to mainly I'm going to start with Disney World. We're going to focus on Disney horror stories as well as a few Disney pixie dust related stories, like really special things that happened while we were at Disney World. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so today's Savvy Story Time is going to be a Disney horror story. So our last trip to Disney World, or my last trip to Disney World without my husband, I went with my sister and my niece, and we went to Disney World. I'm working on taking like all of my nieces and nephews, I say nieces and nephews, my sister's 3 children, so I have 1 niece and 2 nephews. I've already taken my oldest nephew a couple of years ago, and then we took my middle child, my niece Haley, this past February, which I've already posted the vlog for that, so I'll definitely link below to that vlog if you're interested in watching that vlog from our trip. And then I'm going to be taking the youngest, Ian, actually next February, all right, for his 10th birthday as well, although I think we're taking him like a year early, so he'll actually be going for his 9th birthday. But so the last trip we went on was with Haley, and it was just me, my sister, and my niece, right? We stayed for the first time at the Caribbean Beach Resort, and I will say that there were a lot of pros to staying at the Caribbean Beach Resort and in the area that we were in. We were in the Martinique section of the Caribbean Beach Resort, and I will say that the Caribbean Beach Resort is very, very spread out. There's lots of sections. The nice thing about it is that it actually has 2 access points for the Skyliner, you know, like the sky buckets that are new in Disney World. You have the one that's central to the Caribbean Beach, which I think is technically, it might be like the interchange one, like it might be like the hub where you change skylines to go to Epcot or Hollywood Studios. But we were super close where we were at Martinique. We were super close to the Riviera Resort, which is a deluxe resort, and the Riviera has a skyline, you know, not depot, like a skyline stop as well. And so we were like really close, like less than a 5-minute walk to the Riviera Resort's Skyliner stop. I'm not really sure what you call it. It's not a bus stop, I guess just the Skyliner stop. So we were super close. And then we also liked where we were. We were really close to, like, there was like a smaller pool that we were really close to, like literally steps away from like the small, like more private pool. But we were also like like a 5 to 10 minute walk, probably more like only 5 minutes, to the main building and the big pool that had the slide. I think there were like a couple of slides. The pool was really, really nice at the Caribbean Beach Resort. We really liked the like the fast food option. The food was really good there. It was just also just a beautiful resort. And I actually will also link the room walkthrough of our initial room that we were in. I will say initial room that we were in at the Caribbean Beach Resort. So we had issues from like the very start. Like when we first arrived at Disney World, normally you're supposed to get a text message telling you what your room is and how to get there. Like usually they like, if you've already checked in, they will tell you your room is ready, the room number, where it's at, and then usually send like a little link to a map to show you how to get to your room. So we hadn't gotten that yet. So when I pulled in, like, and it was past the time of check-in, so there was no reason the room shouldn't have been ready yet. So we pulled up to the gate, said we had a reservation. I told them we hadn't gotten a text letting us know we could, you know, enter our room yet. And so if you hear noises in the background, it's my dog. But I told the guy at the gate we hadn't got a text message yet, and he said, oh, well, I see your room's ready. You know, just go on in and, you know, give them a call and you should be able to find out where your room was. So we had to pull into just like a random parking lot and made a call and found out where our room was, which was fine. And then we went to Martinique and we went into our room. And like I said, I'll link below to the room walkthrough, but I might cut to some clips here as well. But the room was really nice. Like, we loved the room, we loved the location, but like the very first night we had some issues. The next morning, it rained that night, and the next morning we noticed that all around the door to the room, it was really, really damp. Like, there was a leak. And we couldn't tell if the leak was coming from the air conditioning unit, which was also right by the door, or if the leak was coming from like the door itself. So we didn't really worry anything about it in the beginning. It was just kind of like damp, and we were like, we're not gonna worry about it. It'll probably dry out on its own. So we just kind of left it alone. And that day we went off and we did things, and it rained during the day. And when we got back to our room, we noticed that the leakage, the flooding, so to speak, had spread on the door. So we called and told somebody about it, and they came up and they basically just kind of patted up like the water with towels, which is something that I could have done on my own, and didn't really do anything about it. So we just decided that I had my suitcase like right by the door, like on that side. There was like a big space next to the bed that was nearest the door. So that was where I had my suitcase. I just decided to move my suitcase into the bathroom area and not worry about the putting anything near the door, because I didn't want anything to get wet. So what you got? Are you just chewing on a toy? Or you're chewing on your foot? Okay. So I think like a day went by, and it had gotten worse. So I called again, and they said that they were going to try to fix it. They said they thought that it was like the air conditioning, and kind of implied that we had done something wrong that was causing the leak. And I was like, no, I really do think it's the door. And it had gotten worse. But they did end up refunding us like one night stay. Oh, I forgot something. Okay, so the night before, I think it was like the second night we were in our room, we heard banging on our door at like 10:30 or 11. It was like super late, but it was late enough for where we were in bed, because we were gonna get up early the next morning to go to Magic Kingdom. We wanted to get there like before they opened, right? Because my niece really wanted to ride Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So we really wanted to get to the park early. So we were already in bed, falling asleep or already asleep, and we heard banging on our door. So like, I don't know whether to answer, and I like look out the window, you know, where you can see out to see who's in the hallway. It's all outside, so it's like that outside, like, you know, deck walkway. And there's these two little girls staring at me, and I'm like, well, it can't be anything like crazy dangerous because there's children out here. So I like peep open the door, and this is still like COVID, should be wearing masks time, you know, so I'm not wearing a mask, and I like peek open the door, and I'm like, excuse me? And it was this family with like a cart with all of their suitcases and everything on it, and they were like, oh my God, we're so sorry, this is our room. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. Obviously this is our room because we're here, we're sleeping in it, we have access to it. And they said, no, the front desk people told us that this was our room. They gave us this number, and they even showed me like the confirmation, like text or email that they had gotten showing that our room was their room. And I was like, I'm sorry, there must be some sort of mistake. And then I feel horrible for them, because obviously I think they were either getting moved somewhere else or they had just checked in, but either way, they were trying to get into their room late at night with a couple of kids, suitcases piled up on the cart, and there's obviously been some sort of mistake. So I felt really bad for them, but there wasn't really anything I could do. So the next day, obviously the water around the door had gotten worse. So I called and complained again. I'm letting them know about the banging during the night and the issue with the people banging on our door, and then also that the water hadn't gotten any better. So they said they were gonna try to send somebody to try to fix it, and they went ahead and refunded us that last night's stay at the Caribbean Beach Resort, and then also gave us like a credit. Now I think the refund like went on our account as a credit. So basically like all the money we were spending on like food or souvenirs at Disney World was coming off of the credit, if that makes any sense. So they didn't like refund it to like my credit card that I used to pay for the hotel room. They credited it to our account that we were spending, like our spending account at Disney, if that makes any sense. So I was like, fine, that's great. They didn't really fix the door. They just tried to like dry it up with some towels, so the door was still really wet. And then we waited like another day. I think it was a day or two. We were there 5 nights, I think. So I think this was like the 3rd night. The day after the 3rd night, maybe our 4th full day, we had issues with there being like the toilet didn't want to flush properly. And then there was like a horrible smell. And then I wanted to take a shower, but when I went into the shower, I saw that there was like dirty water in the floor of the shower. Like the shower was backing up with sewage basically, which is just disgusting. So we had to call maintenance again. And they basically kicked us out of our room for the day. And we're like, well, we're going to the parks anyway. Come in, try to fix it. I was really worried because all of our stuff was in the bathroom. Like my suitcase was on the floor in the bathroom. And I'm like, if there ends up being some sort of like flooding or sewage backup, we don't want like, you know, just a worst case scenario. Like all my stuff's gonna get ruined. Like there's sewer in our room, like it was gross. It was gross. So we had to leave our room, and they told us to, you know, that they would let us know when we could come back. So I was livid at this point, and I will say, keep pushing. Disney will do something about it. Okay, don't let it go. Don't be relaxed. You pay a lot of money for a Disney vacation, too much money. And I'm sorry, my dog's playing with the toy behind me. You pay too much money, especially for a moderate level resort, for something like that to happen. So I'm at Disney, I might be getting my days mixed up because I think we were at Magic Kingdom the day I called. So I was on the phone with them like at Magic Kingdom, like dealing with the issue, and they were saying that the sewage backup was too bad, and that we were going to have to change rooms. Well, I know they gave us the option at first to change rooms, and I was like, well, it's not that big of a deal, but then once the sewer thing happened, like there was no fixing it. Like we had to move rooms. And I was all stressed out because I was like, I really like the location we're in. I don't want to have to move rooms. And in the end, they literally moved us next door. We literally moved 1 room. But even though they had refunded, I think they ended up refunding us or crediting us 2 nights, which meant that all the money I had budgeted for food and souvenirs that week was pretty much covered with what they refunded us for 2 nights at the resort. But I felt like it wasn't enough. Like that was beyond what you expect to have. It like ruined our Disney trip on some level. You know what I mean? So I kind of went higher up and talked to somebody on the phone like that night in more detail, and just told them how upset and disappointed I was, and how I am a frequent Disney visitor and I expect a lot more, especially for what I pay for Disney World. And in the end, I'm so sorry, you guys hear my dog. And in the end, they ended up giving us 4 free nights to make up. So I think we were there 5 nights or 6 nights. We must have been there 6 nights. But so we got the 2 nights refunded that, like I said, credited towards us during our actual week, that covered like all our food and souvenirs and stuff. But then in addition to that, they offered us 4 free nights for a future stay at a moderate resort in a similar room to where we had stayed, for a future trip. So Disney made up for it. They understood the seriousness of the situation and how wronged we were in that kind of situation, and how that was just not right. So being Disney and wanting to make sure that the customer is taken care of and that they're not seen in a bad light, they made up for it. And they, like I said, they ended up basically essentially giving us our hotel stay for free, because they refunded 2 of the nights and then gave us 4 free nights for a future trip at a resort, which me and my husband are actually going to be using in December. We used our 4 free nights and then added 1 extra night, and we're actually going to be going to December. And actually I'm going back to the Caribbean Beach Resort. I told my husband, I was like, I really liked the location of it with the Skyliner, and you can easily get to both Hollywood Studios and Epcot really easily on the Skyliner. And I just really liked the resort in general. And the likelihood of what happened last time happening again is extremely low. And that even if something similar happened again, I know that Disney would take care of us, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because even though, like, I think the only negative experience I had with like maintenance or management was that first call that I made where they came to check on it and they implied that we were doing something wrong, like running the air conditioner too high or something like that. So I think that was really the only like negative experience I had ever. Once it got past that point, every call that I had, I felt like management was going above and beyond to make sure that I felt satisfied and happy with their service and with Disney World as a whole. And honestly, I have stayed at so many Disney resorts. We were DVC for a while, but our first trip we stayed at Pop Century, and then I also stayed at, where did we stay with Luke? Oh, I was still DVC, so we were at Saratoga Springs, but I've stayed at Old Key West, Saratoga Springs, Pop Century Resort, the Polynesian, Boardwalk. Where else have we stayed? I'm trying to remember. Kidani Village at Animal Kingdom, now Caribbean Beach Resort. So we've stayed at a lot of resorts and had lots of trips at Disney World, and never ever had this kind of experience with a hotel room at Disney. So I don't want you to think that from this horror story that this potentially could happen to you. I guess you might want to be like a little more like wary of like the older, hotels that haven't been refurbished yet or remodeled yet, because I think that we had like an older room at the Caribbean Beach that hadn't been remodeled yet. So obviously the sewer system definitely need a refurbishing. But like I said, it was a horror story, and it kind of really put a damper it dampened the joy and excitement that you normally have throughout your trip. It kind of put some stress, at least on me. I don't think my niece really felt it. I mean, she's 10. I don't think she was just at Disney World and she didn't really notice all the bad stuff. But overall, it was still a magical trip. It was still... He's going to town. He's going to town on that thing, isn't he? Okay, so it did put a damper on the trip overall, at least for me as the person paying all the money for the trip. But my niece wasn't really overly affected by the stuff that happened. She was just happy to be there. So it was still a magical trip, but it was a little disappointing with the whole hotel thing. But like I said, Disney went above and beyond making up for it. So I guess the lesson here is, if something goes wrong in your hotel room, don't just deal with it, ask them to fix it. And that even if they fix it, ask them to make up for it, because they will. So don't keep quiet. My main, lesson that I'm trying to give you here is that Disney is a big thing. For some people, they save their whole lives to go to Disney once, right? But even if you don't and you go lots of times like I do, you're still paying a lot of money for Disney, and you have a high expectation for what kind of quality and luxury, even at a moderate or value level resort, that you're going to get when you're at Disney World. And if you don't get what you expect, then let them know. Okay, don't keep quiet about it. If it's warranted, if it's needed, like if your issue is like a real issue like mine was, they'll do something to fix it. So thank you so much for watching my first Savvy story time when we share a Disney horror story, unfortunately. But stay tuned for more. Yes, unfortunately, I do have some other horror stories, not as bad. This was my worst Disney horror story that I have to share. Also stay tuned for some pixie dust, you know, like really cool Disney things that happen to me on Disney trips as well. So thank you so much for watching. Please, if you love this video, please hit that like button, especially so that I will know that you like this kind of content and you'd like me to continue to make more of it. Okay, and don't forget, be savvy and enjoy the journey. See you guys next time. Bye.